Hi everyone. I want to talk a little bit about a comment on one of my videos, and it's basically asking, how do you live with grace, spiritual grace, when you're living in chronic pain? It's interesting because my mother had cancer, and when she got it in the early 30s, and she died in her 40s, and she would have been a really good person to ask that question to. She had breast cancer. She had one of her breasts removed, and 2 years after that she got bone and liver cancer and lived with that for about 10 years. And I seen her suffer horrendously throughout my early years. And just to give you an example, when I was 16 years old, my brothers and sisters already moved out. I was the youngest out of a family of 5. My father left when I was 4, and my mother had to stay with my grandmother because she was throwing up every single day. So when I was 16, I was working as an actual chef at a restaurant in Cavendish Beach area. So I drove about 35 minutes every day to work during the summer, and that summer was a pretty interesting time in my life. But when I went to visit my mother, she could barely even speak to me. She was throwing up constantly from her treatments. And she was in pain and suffering for most of the time that I knew her. And she would always be positive as much as possible around me. And I don't know, like, there's a lot of things obviously happened in the background when I wasn't around or wasn't there. The suffering that she went through was horrendous. But she always stayed positive as much as she could. And when you really think about it, there's probably many, many, many times that she probably cried for hours at a time, struggled with why. But she never mentioned that to me. She never said it to me, but she always kept positive as much as possible, and she never gave up hope. Even at the last time I've seen her, I was in Etobicoke when I was in college. And I would have had to repeat the whole semester. I got a call, just to back it up a bit, I had a call that my mother was doing really bad. But just like, you got to understand, there's so much of this throughout my life that I never thought much of it, because she's always been sick, always been really bad. And I was away for a while in college, so when I got back during that time, she was about 90, probably 80, 90 pounds, sunken in eyes. And I don't know if anybody ever seen anybody with cancer. It's one of those things you never forget when they're just about to die. It was really difficult to see, because it changes your idea. Okay, now when you go there, I could stay for 2 weeks, and that's all I could stay for. I tried to get an extension because it was just near exams, or I would have had to repeat the whole year. So I had conversations with your mother based around that, and I had to do one of the hardest things that I had ever done. Is I listened to what she was saying, and she wanted me to make sure that I didn't have to repeat that whole semester. So I honored that. But when I left, I had to leave with her crying, bawling her eyes out in the hospital. And when I got back to Toronto, I got a phone call 3 days later, basically saying that she died. And I could have went. Our family did not have any money. At the time, we spent whatever we could to get back. I might have been able to take a bus home. maybe. And but we decided it was just one of those things. It was already decided that it wouldn't be going back and I wouldn't be seeing her again. I didn't expect her to die so quickly, but at the same time, it wasn't a shock. And in a lot of ways, it was a relief because she was in so much pain for so long, but always stayed positive. So maybe I should go to my mother and ask her what it was like to live with chronic pain. And because that memory of my mother is really difficult for me, and it's a shame because something in my own mind blocked out the memories of my mother. I don't know what that was. Maybe there was this trauma of so much suffering for so long in her end, but I took it really, like I did a lot of work for her. I was a spiritual person my whole life, so I did tons and tons of work in the background. And I tried to do whatever I could, but it was never meant to be. It was meant to be that she was going to die from cancer. So I had to live with the memory of the last memory of my mother. That's the only memory I have of my mother, except for a few flashes. And I've been trying to work on retrieving the memories, but for some reason my mind decided that I'm gonna have to live without that. So that's a whole nother story, but this whole story is important because it's going to help the person who asked that question. That there's a lot of people in this world that are suffering in a lot of pain in different ways. One of the things that I'm lucky in is that I'm able to talk to my mother. A lot of people would have that memory of their mother crying and had to make the decision and have to live with that decision. And it was me and my brother that had to leave. We both could only stay for so long. He had to go back to work. And our family just did not have a lot of money. My father left when I was 4. My mother had 5 kids to raise. She worked all the time, and so there's a lot of memories there. That memory of her kind of overpowered my memories of my mother, and that's all I have is a couple of flashing memories of my mother. And that one is a lot of pain because I did a lot of stuff in the background, and it just, no matter what you do, sometimes you have to accept what you're given in order to be able to move on in your life. So I was left not having much of a parental figures. My brothers and sisters are all older than me, and they kind of moved out, and I was left pretty well, a lot of it to raise myself. Most of my life I was working since I was 11 because I knew my mother didn't have any money and she couldn't buy me the things I was wanting. So I ended up working even at 8-9 years old with paper routes. Actually, paper was pretty lucrative at that time for young kids. And I ended up going into cooking at 11 years old, and which is the reason why I was able to be a head chef at 16. Different world back then. And a lot of stuff happened to me over the years. So everybody is in pain, but chronic pain is different. It's a physical pain, not an emotional pain. So let me go into my mother and see what she has to say to help this person, because what better person to ask that lived almost their whole life in pain of one of the worst kinds of pain. Just take a deep breath here. And it's bringing me back to when I was in the hospital looking back at my mother. And she's crying. And I see that the whole room is full of angels and spirits of light, her ancestors, our ancestors. And there was a lot of them holding her at that time, because as soon as we left, they had removed her from her body and just held her for a long time, because she as soon as we left, me and my brother both, she fell into a coma and died 3 days later. They're showing me that as soon as we left, the pain was so much for her to bear that she was removed from her body to stay balanced. And she called out to me, and I couldn't hear her at the time. But there's a part of me that stayed behind with her. And she wants to talk to this person about dealing with chronic pain. There is ability within us all to be able to disconnect from pain. When you live with it for so long, it's almost becomes numb, like you can numb your senses to that pain. But then you got to be careful, because you don't want to numb your soul in the process. You don't want to numb the idea of, and this is part of the question, is like, how do you stay positive throughout this without creating yourself to be numb to everything? She tells me you give the pain to someone or something that you believe in. Give them the brunt of the pain. So that allows you to be more free, to be able to focus on a child, focus on something. You need to focus on something that you want to do, and you need to focus on that. You need to almost super focus. It's not like she says you have to super focus on the things that you want to do. So if you want to be a good person, you want to be able to stay happy, you need to super focus on being happy, because the underlying pain never goes away. It's always there. So you have to constantly allow that energy to be given to something else. And you're always constantly surrounded by souls that want to help you. So allow them to help you. Allow them to hold you, to embrace you. Allow them to carry you when you can't walk or when you can't speak. You need to allow them in more than anything in life. You need help. So when you're in so much pain, you need help. And it feels like there's no help there, but if you allow the help to be brought out, to be flowed outward, there will be souls that will help you. And focus on what you want more than anything else, because you have to super focus on things and not simply just focus on them. It's like, how do you paint a beautiful piece of art when your hands are they hurt so much? But you're an artist and you got arthritis so bad that you can't paint, but you still want to paint, so you have to bear the pain and just super focus on what it is that you want. And when you allow the pain to be given to another thing around you, it helps you be able to pick that pin. But it's like she says, it's not easy. It's not meant to be easy. You challenge yourself to be able to endure this. So you have to endure it. You have to allow spirits in to help you through it. But you have to and learn to live with the pain. Because if you allow yourself to fall into darkness and anger and frustration and pity, you'll never be able to accomplish what it is that you're wanted to do, is to overcome it. You put this challenge on yourself, and you could say and blame other things or the people or the situation or the disease or the whatever is causing the pain. But ultimately it is a challenge that you put forward for yourself. And you can ask the spirits to help you with the pain. You have to focus on it is what you want in life. And when you see your child, you need to stay strong and allow them to help you. But she said, I was never allowed in. And that's one of her biggest regrets, is because I was never allowed in. She always kept me outside of her pain. And that's something that she regrets, because she sees that I would have been better off if she allowed me to embrace her more with her pain, help her more with her pain, be more open to just talking about it and allowing me to help her with her pain. Instead of me always doing things in the background, she had no idea I was doing it. That's part of my fault, because I should have been more forthcoming with what I was doing. And together we could have overcome the pain more in both of us. Because it caused me a lot of pain, but it made me a stronger person. But I still bear the pain of the years of watching her die slowly. Watching the memories, or even the memories of her when I left and not being there when she died, it was extremely difficult. It still is. When I go back into that pain, it's still there, but I have over the years learned to accept that, to move above it as much as I can. And then when I go back into that pain, it becomes less and less and less severe. So allow people in. Allow people to embrace the pain with you. To focus on the things that you want, and you need to focus hard, and you need to ask for help. And for the ones, she says, that do not have help, this is where you need to open up your soul to the spirit realm, because you always have help. You're never alone. And the more you open yourself up, the more you will feel at peace, because the souls around you will fill you full of peace. And the pain and suffering will become less, because they will take the brunt of that. Well, so will you, but it would be less severe. So that's the message that my mother wanted to share with everyone. It was not easy for me to do. It was very difficult. To allow the embrace of spiritual energy inside your heart is crucial when you're in a lot of pain. Thank you very much, everyone, and please be good to each other. Be good to everyone around you. We all need help, every one of us. We are one community, we are one family. Don't forget that.